Oh, yeah. Bless and love, my lords. Welcome to another Punks Chat by Redlioneye. I'm super excited to have today with us Maxwell, the punk interviewer, who is doing a wonderful job with PunkCast, interviewing all the punks and creating a nice archive of people. Hey, Max, how's it going, my dude?
Hey, good man. Thank you so much for having me.
Man, your show is amazing, and I love it since I first found it, and you are developing it incredibly well. So I'm super excited for this interview, and thanks for joining.
I appreciate that so much, man. It means so much. I think it's almost been a year now, or coming up close to a year since I first started. So yeah, it's been fun.
Thank you for coming, man. I appreciate it. And thank you for inviting me so early on to the show. But let's start. This time you are on the interview seat. You are on the guest chair for a difference. How does it feel?
I'm sweating. I'm not going to lie. Never been on the other side.
Yeah. So let's start how we always start those punk talks that we do. So if you can share with us your punk story, how did you end up buying your punk? Around what price? And in general, like the origin story.
Yeah, sure. So this is actually my third punk that I've had. So do you want me to just talk about this one, or do you want me to go right to the beginning?
However you like it.
Okay. Well, I might just start right from the beginning. So I,
Mm-hmm.
I bought my first punk in, I think, around March 2021. It was 5176. So I think a punk named Feral is sort of rocking it today. But basically, I bought that with my hard-earned equity and the like, and I was pretty stressed out about buying them. I think I got the in at about 21 ETH or so. And I was too stressed out and only held it for like maybe about a month or so, and sold it for like maybe 20, 22 or 23 or something like that. But I think getting into the NFT space, I think the key thing that I was always enamored with was the whole Twitter who's who was full of punks, and I just wanted to sort of be part of that community and be in with the cool kids. And obviously, I wasn't cool without a punk. So, but anyway, so bought and sold my first punk 5176, and then moved into the Gary V.
How much did you buy your first punk for?
About 21 ETH. Yeah, and then shortly after, I bought into the V Friends project. So I bought a gift goat for 5 ETH and basically sold that for 21. And as soon as I sold that for 21, I went and bought another punk, and that was Punk 7006. So he was my first knitted cap, eye patch, and a beard. And he was my favorite. And I was rocking him for a while. And, that's when I sort of started getting into a little bit deeper into the punks community and hanging out with some of the orange knit caps back then. And that's how I met Josh as well, who was my first guest on the podcast as well. He's also a knit cap. But I sold out in the bull run. I got out, and then I was out for a while. And then around NFT NYC 2022, when the floor prices came to about 50 ETH, and I think we had an opportunity to scoop ETH at about $1,000, I decided to get back in just when I was in New York. And so I bought the current one that I have right now as 9527 for I think about 75 ETH back in around June 22, I think it might have been. So yeah, so that's sort of my punk story, man. But every single time I bought and sold my first and second punk, I've regretted it ever sort of since, right? Because I think I've just built emotional attachments to the things, and I mean I couldn't really say that about any other NFT, to be honest. But it's just there's something about punks that made me feel a bit sad after selling them. So hopefully I won't have to sell the current one I've got.
Well, one of the best parts about asking about the punk stories is that we hear so many different stories, but one thing is common: the regret for and the hindsight for like buying and selling some punks. You know, no, mostly selling.
Totally, man. But like, after I sold my first one, they announced the Meebits claim, and then
Hmm.
I think it went to Christie's, and I started ripping, right. So I missed out on a bit of a bull run then, and then I started regretting then the dip, and I sort of managed to get myself back in again. So I was kind of lucky. But anyway, yeah, that's sort of my punk acquisition sort of story.
And how did you come up with the idea to start a podcast from there? Since when are you going? As you said, the first one is with Joshua. I see on YouTube that it was uploaded 2 months ago, but that's just the upload, right?
Yeah, that was just the upload, but the actual Spotify version was around October last year. So
October last year. Did you have experience with podcasting?
none, man. Like as you could tell, I think a lot of my earlier episodes, and even today, I'm not a great speaker. I'm
Hmm.
actually very introverted, right? So I'm probably nervous speaking in front of an audience today. Where, even though we've got like five people in the audience, but yeah, so I'm not experienced at all, and had to sort of learn the different tools. I think I was asking a few friends that had done a few podcasts. They put me onto a few tools, and I had to learn how to edit myself and all those other bits and pieces. But I think the thing I love about punks was every single punk that I had a conversation with had a really super interesting story, and I'd be always asking them the same questions again, and and that was super fascinating. And I think we just automatically connect. And it probably came from part of the punks brunch in New York City as well. I think that just sort of gave me the vibe of what was going on, and then coming back from that, building some relationships there. Came back onto Twitter, and because I'm based in Hong Kong, I'm not really where the action is in the US and in Europe. But just connecting with punks and having a very similar conversation, I was just thinking to myself, like, this would be really great to share with everybody, because I don't think a lot of people have the opportunity to meet in an intimate sort of setting and have these conversations one on one. Like, we even go to like a punks brunch or an event, but I don't think we would be able to unpack that much detail in that sort of session, because just so many people around, and you've got a very limited time frame. But just
Exactly, and it's mostly banter at these events.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's getting drinks and getting on it, right? But yeah, so I think that was sort of the genesis of it, and I think the other side too is I don't think I could have done this with any other collection, right? I was just looking at the quality and the caliber of people that we have in the punk community that had just been in the space for so long, had contributed so much to sort of Web3, are leading their own projects, are building. It's just a really diverse, eclectic group of people that I find really, really fascinating, interesting. So that's probably the genesis
Yeah.
of it.
I love it. I love it because it's homegrown and very grassroots, and you did it all by yourself, man. Congratulations. It's not an easy thing to set it up.
Yeah, thanks.
I know because we are trying also to do broadcasts, and they are not easy.
Yeah, so that was what I was thinking too, right? Because like at that time, I think there was a lot of spaces that were going on, and talking about the latest trends and all that type of stuff. And I think for me, it's just playing into the whole provenance and history of punks too. And I think there's replay value in the product. So you and I
Mm,
can have a conversation. We can record it once, but hopefully it'll be there when everybody wants to sort of, has the time or has the headspace to listen to it. Because not everybody has headspace to listen to what you're saying at any one point in time, right? So I think just having a very clean collection of punks over a period of time, I think it's got a lot of a very strong replay value, right? So hopefully that'll come through.
Also, from a perspective of like plus 100 years, maybe. Um, people can look back and see like the punks that owned this before that are dead now. Who were they, and what kind of people and what kind of ideals they had?
Absolutely, and that's something that I wanted to do as well. And I'm still trying to work on a few ways to figure out how to do this in a meaningful way. But I would absolutely love that if the next time you bought a punk, you could listen to all the punks that came before you. And I think it just adds another
Yeah.
layer of depth, history, provenance, and something additional special and personal to the owner. And that's sort of why you collect, right? I'm sure, like, just even having, Jay-Z's wallet in your in your history says something, right? Is that it becomes a little bit more special. And so, but I think if you actually had a lot more context and a story behind each one of these punks and what they were sort of used for, it could be quite special, right?
Yeah, man, it's very fascinating just to think about it. And you have one question there that hit me so hard, man. When you asked me this, I tears came to my eyes when I was talking. But we will get to that later. Right now, how many episodes you have? I think you have around 67. Oh no, more than that.
Yeah, so
Around 70.
I'm at about 63 episodes that have been released.
63. Yeah.
I've got a backlog at the moment. My editor's currently on leave, so he's back on Monday next week. So I'll be pushing him to get some back. So I've just taken the last couple of weeks off. But yeah, so I think we'll be hitting episode 69 soon. So for those
nice.
that are listening, stick around for episode 69.
Yeah, that's a milestone, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Since you started making this, I remember when I came to the show, the concept was a little bit different. You were trying to ask the same questions to the punks, and it was the same question, different punk, right? Something like that.
Yeah, that hasn't changed. I basically asked the same questions.
Oh, really? Because I remember the second time, because let me give some context. I did a first interview with PunkCast, and I sucked at it so bad we had to do it again. It was like one of my first public speaking interviews, and thank you for being so patient with me.
just for the record, Redline, I thought you were fine. I think you're too hypercritical of yourself, mate. So I thought you were fine. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I understand what you do, and I really respect it. So I felt a lot of pressure to perform, and when I didn't, I felt really bad. So I was like, "Yeah, let's redo this." But thank you, man. Thank you for the kind words and for being patient with my interview. But yeah, on the second one, it was different questions. I felt like, and I thought maybe you changed the recipe.
So I think. I generally sort of break it up into two parts. The first half is basically just around the punk origin story, your background, everything sort of leading up to it. And then the second part is a little bit more on punks. But the very first part, I'm a little bit more fluid, right? Because you don't know where the conversation is going to take you, So I think, if they're talking about their background and they're sort of saying, I went to study here, I went to work here, and then you just go down those little rabbit holes and you press on them a little bit more just to sort of get a bit more context about, why they decided to do that. And, and I think it just, hopefully it paints a bit more of a picture of the kind of punk that they are and what sort of influences them today and how they see the world today. So I think that was and I think that very first half of the podcast is really hard to do in a very structured way. But generally it's like, how did you come up with your handle? What's your background leading up to Web3? How did you discover crypto? But within those, broadly speaking, the structure should be generally the same. The questions might be a little bit different. Yeah.
What is an insight that you learned by doing this, and it completely changed your mindset, or was there a moment that you realized something that changed your approach? Did you learn something about broadcasting these interviews?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's just being a little bit more planned and prepared helps. So I think trying to do a little bit of research on punks where you can. Some punks are anonymous and they don't have a lot of stuff that you can sort of find out. But in terms of the podcasting side, I think I think the biggest insight is probably just trying to relax and ask genuine, authentic questions, because then you won't get bullshit answers in some ways, right? So I think I guess for me, it's really around how do you get comfortable with people and building rapport with people, and it's kind of hard, right? Because other than Twitter, we've never spoken before, and it's hard to sort of build up the rapport. And so for some people, it takes a little bit of time to warm up. And so I think those first early questions are pretty important, just to help people sort of warm up to the podcast.
Break the ice is very important. Get them feel comfortable. Yeah, that's very, very important. I learned this the hard way. When we started, I was like, my speech was so wooden and so stiff, and I was like, oh man, maybe I'm not built for this.
No,
but at the end of the day.
But man, I think I've heard your stuff before, and you come in with a lot of energy, and really, strong words. And I think for me, it's like I'm relatively introverted, right? And I'm low energy, so I need to really try and drag that out of me, man. So, but I think you do that really well.
Thank you, man. I'm trying to get better. I'm listening to the podcast and I'm learning. Is there any behind the scenes that happened, or any interesting story that we might not be aware from any of the guests?
Behind the scenes, not really. I'm just trying to think. All of them have been pretty smooth. I mean, I get an editor, so I only recently got him. I think from about Stray Bits episode onwards. So I think all the episodes before Stray Bits were my edits, so they're pretty shit. But afterwards, I think they were pretty good, right? So he cuts out a lot of the ums and ahs and the pauses and the scratching. And I don't know, in some of the episodes, you can probably hear my dog in the background, either barking or scratching at the door. So he sort of cuts that out. But in terms of the guests themselves, I think most of them have been absolutely brilliant. I don't think there has been any sort of hidden discussions that we haven't spoken about or shared on PunkCast.
Not hidden discussion, but any mishaps, any accidents or whatever. Yeah.
Other than my audio AV equipment not working sometimes, I've just had to reschedule the whole thing.
Oh my God, the audio, man, it's so hard.
Yeah, but other than that, I think nothing too bad.
Stray Beach was a huge episode, and I always admired him. And we also had an interview with him back in the day by Dr. Terminus. So big shout out, both legends, and thanks to Stray Bits for giving us the interview. But I noticed that, as you said, from his episode onwards, the runtime is a little bit lower. All the previous ones are around the hour mark. This is the first one that is 37 minutes, and then you are 55 minutes, and I see only one over an hour, maybe two. So how do you edit those, and what is the final runtime? Was it a conscious decision that it dropped, or
No,
it just happens with any punk?
I think it just happens naturally. But it'd be good to get some of your feedback as well, because I've been having some feedback from some listeners, and they sort of feel like it's too long, and they probably prefer shorter, sort of 30-minute punchy episodes. But for me, it's it depends on the punk, right? Sometimes you get on and there's a lot of things that you can just talk with a punk, and sometimes the punk is very talkative, right? And you can't get them to shut up sometimes, right? But it's a good thing, because they're unpacking a lot of interesting things, and I just don't want to cut them short, right? Because I think it's really great to sort of document as much as I can, or whatever we're sort of willing to give, whatever they're willing to give. So, I mean, for example, I think, the longest episodes are probably with Hemba. I don't know if you've heard of that one yet, but that was almost an hour and a half. I think Galbraith was another long episode, and Galbraith was a great speaker. And, he knows how to tell stories, and, we just get into it. And it's super fascinating, just unpacking his journey with, Beanie and Punk's comic and all that type of stuff. And I was just super curious. Barcella was another one as well that sort of pushed that toward that sort of hour mark. But others are a little bit more straightforward, right? And so we just sort of vibe, just based on the vibe. I just sort of go with that depending on the punk, right? So I don't have a rule of thumb other than trying to keep it within an hour ish, because I sort of feel like anything more than an hour might be a bit too much. But broadly speaking, about an hour. But in certain situations, if the flow is good, then I'll just let it go.
Well, one thing. What does the feedback say? You say you're receiving feedback about that. So, do people want them longer or shorter?
I've had some feedback that just prefer to just more focus the conversation just on punks, and therefore a little bit shorter. And it's like sometimes I sort of they didn't say shill, but they said like it was dragging into the weeds much where they probably didn't find it interesting into the sort of backstory. And it's not like a one size fits all. And I think like I'm a bit of a nerd, right? So I'm fascinated by everything. Like I'm curious about learning about different sort of topics. And so for me, it's like I'm happy just to go in and explore a little bit more and learn a little bit more. But for others, they're just interested around their sort of punk journey, right? So I think for me, I'm just trying to strike the right balance between their punk story, what is it they're doing, and obviously offering it as a platform for them to show the work that they've done and showcase the work that they've done. Because as a punk, I'm really proud that punks are building in this space, and I think it's something to celebrate and hopefully give them another voice and a platform to celebrate that for.
Exactly, man. And when you're building something, maybe you have an idea of how it will work or how you would like it to be, and then when you put it out there, even if it's a good idea, you get like other points of views and feedback from the people that give you different insights, right? And that we also found that out after doing some things, and we say, oh, okay, this is how it works, and this is what is nice about it, and then people are like, oh no, we like this more. More of that, please. And gives you also different perspectives sometimes.
Absolutely. And
as you said, it's nice to learn.
Absolutely. And I think the other side too is, one thing I've been thinking about, and this is why I wanted to push content onto YouTube, was to try and get a new audience in, or be open to getting a different kind of audience in. Because I sort of feel like the first point of call, if you're getting into NFTs, should really be punks. I sort of feel like, most punks are taking on leadership roles in the space, have a little bit of credibility and a bit of a track record, some people that you can sort of trust. So I think it's always a first good entry point if you were looking to get into the space. And I think one of the first collections that most people learn about, including me, getting into the space was CryptoPunks, understanding NFTs, understanding traits and all those other bits and pieces. And so hopefully, if we can try and transition, some of our content into sort of fulfilling some of that need, then that'd also be great too. But I think the audience is probably very crypto native and very niche and indie at the moment, right? So
yeah, and this value network of people, as you said, is getting even stronger now with the conferences and getting to know people in real life. It's even better, and the connections are stronger. You see the person, you meet, you have some banter, some laughs. It's even harder for, like, let's say, bad actors to come in. So it's really cool.
So Redline, let me ask you that as well. I mean, like, I had a couple of punks that came to me and said, they went to a couple of conferences and they found the PunkCast really helpful because it sort of felt like they knew the punk before they got to meet them in real life, and it just helped break the ice and build additional rapport with some of the other punks too. I don't know. Did you find that sort of helped with providing a bit of context with some of the punks that you met, or?
Well, what you say is amazing. Like, if you listen to the conversation, punk before, you learn a few elements about them, and when you meet them in real life, if you say, "Hey, man, I know this and this and this about you," and like you bring it up in the conversation, man, it feels fucking amazing because you feel like, man, it fucking matters. It's not like um, words in the air. And there is a connection between us crazy people owning a JPEG.
Yeah.
So I love it. I love it when this happens. It doesn't happen to me very often because I also don't meet so many people, but it has happened, and I have to tell you, it feels fucking amazing.
Great. Mate, well, we're still waiting.
It
We're
is.
still waiting for the Punk's boat cruise at some stage, right?
Oh man, we have to do. Well, I got when we were planning our event in Lisbon, I got like a connection with a boat that does day sails, and I was like, "Oh man, Maxwell would have liked that for sure." But it was such a pain to put it together and get people to be in specific spots to join the boat, and if they missed the boat, they missed it. It was. I didn't think it would work.
We'll have to make it happen for sure one of these years, man. Mark my words, we'll make it happen.
One of these conferences, it will happen, man. It's a good. I would love it, especially now after I have met so many punks in real life. I would love it, and I have to say that these real life events, like, gave me a new passion for punks that maybe I lost along the way. And this really, really helped to fuel the fire in a sense.
I'm happy, man. I'm happy. Man, like I heard, some of the punks that met you in Paris, man, absolutely loved you, man. Like they loved your energy and
Yeah. People are like, "Yeah, Redlioneye is not such a big of an asshole at the end." But I know how I look, man. I'm trying to fix it sometimes, but yeah, it's a personal struggle. Everybody tries to be better and better, so I'm trying my best. I know that I don't look good sometimes, but I want to try to mean well always.
Yeah, of course. You wear your heart on your sleeve, man. I think everybody can see that, so it's all good.
Mm-hmm. Now, my absolutely favorite part about your podcast. This shit hit me like a ton of bricks, bro. Like, even now, I am thinking about it and I'm feeling emotional. It's your question. Loosely rephrased, it's like after you die, what is your message to the next owner of your punk, right? How do you word it?
Yeah, so if you could pass a message on to the owner of your next punk 9527, what would you like to say to them? That's generally the gist.
That fucking hits hard. Like, that is so good, man. That's such a huge question. I don't know about other people, but like, I think about death almost every day. And I'm 35 years old now, so I'm thinking I'm like the best case scenario, like midlife. So I have this much long left. And I kind of think about it, what matters in life. Like, people say, "Oh, buy this, try to maintain it." Does it matter at the end? Entropy is inevitable. But I never thought about this with my punk and my work. And when you did that question, because like, you die, bro, like there's nothing to gain from that. Like, what would you like it to be? And it hits so hard. So, brilliant question. And I would like it to reverse it, please. So if you can give us your answer to this question.
Oh, wow. In the hot seat. I would just say, whoever's got Punk 9527, enjoy him, respect him, use him as he's meant to be used. And I think, maybe I could steal a few lines from some of the other punks that have used it before, but I think one that really sticks with me too is, with great power comes great responsibility, and I really believe that as a punk, you really need to uphold those punk values because it's a pretty special community to be part of, and and it's quite symbolic of the kind of values that you hold as a person. And so I wish you all the best with Punk 527. I hope you go on to do amazing and beautiful things with it.
I love it, man. I love it. I can't describe, like, the first time you asked me, we had to redo that question because I fumbled hard. But eventually my answer is, and I have thought so much about it, you can't believe, man. Like when I'm walking my dogs and my brain drifts to random stuff, I've thought about this so much, and I think I would love, because like I'm dying, right? Nothing to gain. So I would like to pass on the legacy. Like I would like to pass it to the next guy. He doesn't have to be Redlioneye. He can have his own name.
Yeah.
But why not pass the whole fucking company too, like the whole project? If it's someone that can, like, I won't be there to judge, and it can definitely backfire. But if it doesn't, it's going to be fucking epic.
Yeah. It'd be super interesting, right? I mean, like it's going to happen at some stage. Either we die with our private keys and it doesn't go anywhere, or it gets passed along somewhere down the track. It could be a museum, who knows, right? But hopefully, I don't know how I feel about it being in a museum. It's almost like getting a beautiful car that you won't be able to get to drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of feel like
sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I kind of feel it's a little bit of a waste being in a museum, and I know it's cool, and it says a lot about punks being in a museum, but I sort of feel like punk should be used. It should be out there building things, building networks, and there's a whole bunch of utility that's hidden by being a punk, right? So, anyway.
I completely agree, man. There is a place, and some punks belong to museums. Why not? But I agree with you that a punk is a punk. And the best representation you can have of a punk out in the open, in my opinion, it's street art, bro. Yeah. It's like the same as an NFT. Public display, private ownership, and everybody can see it. So I love that.
Absolutely.
And I agree with you. A punk is more of a punk if it's on the street than in a museum, for me at least.
Yeah.
I love that aspect of it. In the time you have been doing the podcast and the guests you had, I hate those kind of questions, but like, do you, not a favorite, but do you have some of conversations that stuck with you?
Yeah. So.
And if yes, if you don't mind saying which punks stayed in your mind, same as you stayed in mine.
Yeah, sure. So look, I preface it with I love all the punks that have been on the show. I'm a big fan of everybody. But I have to say the punks that sort of really stood out for me were probably the Claimers. And namely, Hemba, Stray Bits, B, TJ. Those Claimers have such a really, and obviously Tony Herrera as well. I think I've had 5 on so far. Hopefully I've named them all, but they've got such a really interesting take on life, NFTs, and they're just really humble, super nice people. And Hemba was an interesting one in that, before the interview, I sort of had preconceived notions of who he was, and what, and I think, there was, you're going to touch a whole bunch of different names to him about being a grifter and all the bad things that he's sort of done. And, but I think when you sort of start unpacking that story and just listening to it objectively, I mean, it's not even about V1 punks, but, punks are counterculture, and people have a different way of articulating that and expressing that and going into the grain. And I sort of felt that was a cool story because I hadn't really understood that, right? And understanding it from his perspective and how he sees the world from getting in early on. And his backstory was super interesting too. Going to airports with bags of cash and, Bitcoin and, dealing in the dark web and all that type of stuff. But I sort of feel like those stories are part of what makes punks legit, right? We are a counterculture brand that's, not commercial, likes to go against the grain, but also has like an underground cool indie vibe, right? And that sort of goes the same thing with Stray Bits and Tony Herrera. Tony Herrera has just been such an amazing person. I think if you listen to most,
I love him. I listened to that the moment it came out. The moment it came
for
out.
Tony Herrera, yeah. So he's such a generous, kind soul, and I think when you listen to a few of the other punkers that I've had, they all talk about Tony in the same way. Helping them get on into the space.
I also met him in real life. Absolute gentleman.
Yeah, he's super generous, and we're super lucky to have a punk like him in the space and leading the space forward as well. And giving good vibes and connecting people. I think a lot of the punks, he's connected me with a lot of punks like B and I think even Stray Bits as well. So I think he's generous like that, and he wants all the punks to succeed. He wants the brand to succeed, and so I think those were sort of the ones that sort of stand out for me. And I think we're really lucky as a punk community to have those kinds of people that have claimed and have decided to stick around and participate and grow and tell their stories and really believe in the space and going forward, right? So I think those are probably the ones that really do it for me.
I can 100% relate with what you said about Hemba and coming into the space and like he's super OG, so coming into the punks room, I got the impression that he's like an anti-hero of the punk community, or like the Dark Knight, not the hero we need, but the hero we deserve. And a lot of people affected my judgment, but after speaking with him, getting to know him, and reading what he writes, I think Hemba is a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And I think he has immense knowledge about a lot of things, like even about V1 Punk, which I have objections. When I hear him talk, he fucking makes sense, so he's really cool, and my preconceived notions about him were completely wrong. And I have to say, in this life, nobody is just good or bad. We are all a mix of things. So I was wrong to have this notion of him, and he's right for being himself and doing the things he does, and he's great at what he does. He's really good.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I can completely identify with that.
Yeah, and I think that's part of Punkcast too, right? Is to tell these stories, hopefully in an objective way, right? Because I think you're right. As soon as you get into the Discord and getting into some of the narratives around, especially around V1 punks, there's a negative connotation with that, and I can understand why. Some of the V1 punk community are quite antagonistic. When they come out and they tweet and they sort of say Providence matters and post the V1 punk, it's basically sort of saying V2's go fuck yourself, right? So like, so I think that doesn't help, but I think you've got to put that aside and just be objective about what's actually happened and what are we actually seeing here. Everybody's got a role to play, everybody's got a story to play, and there's different ways of doing that, right? And so hopefully but the thing is, I think it's a beautiful story. Like the ups and downs makes a great story. It's not a boring story. We have actually got a history and a story and interesting people and figures behind punk culture, right? And it's something
100%,
something to be proud of, right? It's so I think we're sort of building it, right?
Exactly. And when I started this PunksTalk, I wanted to chat not only with punks I admire, but also punks that are the anti-heroes, to put lightly, I think that punks are neutral, and as an art, everybody can buy a punk as long as they can afford it. But being a punk is a little bit more than that, in a sense of some people. But we all are cryptopunks. Even if a guy is good, bad, scammer, it's all part of the same story. So I always was fascinated about, like, the force and the dark side, to say it like that.
Yeah. Well,
How do you feel about that?
yeah. Look, it's hard, right? Because like
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard.
because like yes, they can buy a punk, but and there's a fine line between promoting and grifting. You know,
Hmm.
like profit isn't a bad thing to have, but it just depends on how you do it. And so and I think as a punk, there should be erring on the conservative good side of it and more of a public good side to really try and bring everybody else up with you, right? It's not like a win-lose situation where like I'm going to sell you something and I'm going to grift it and basically profit off you. So like if you're coming in with a genuine sort of stance and you're buying a punk because it's going to elevate you and your brand and your product and you're trying to genuinely build and create value, then more for it. I'm happy to support you. But if you're sort of coming in and you're buying it to be very transactional, very short term, very grifty, not really genuine about building relationships and what the sort of punk means, then I sort of have a bit of an issue with that, right? And that's something that I try and sort of steer away from. But every single community is going to get elements of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I remember when you interviewed Ryan Carson, and then shortly after he sold his punk. I remember in the chat you were feeling a bit down, and I told you having an interview is not an endorsement.
Yeah.
Was the Ryan Carson your least favorite interview?
No, look, to be fair, Ryan Carson, and I might get shut on for this. He's actually a really lovely guy. I met Ryan through Proof when I first joined Proof, and I think at the time he was a COO, and he's always polite. And met him in person when I was in New York. Really pleasant guy, really kind. But I think he's probably a little bit tone deaf about how he approaches business and how he communicated on Twitter, and it was just sort of his way, right? And so, and there's nothing wrong with sort of shame, cell shaming people, and I don't want to do any of that, but I sort of felt like ideally the punks I would have liked to interviewed would have been true genuine punks at heart, and wanted to sort of stay for the long term. And I think the way that he went out, the way that he did, probably wasn't a great reflection on punks, and wasn't a great reflection on my judgment in character of bringing punks into the show, because like part of me bringing punks into the show is really for me to help celebrate them as people and the things that they're sort of doing and all those other bits and pieces. And when that was far from the truth, it just I felt a little bit disappointed. That's all.
Was that also a moment that you said, "Man, I like to focus more on punk claimers"? Maybe did that spark that?
No, I don't think so. I think I've always wanted to identify who the punk claimers are, and I think it's just an interesting sort of backstory to get out the way. But and it's interesting too. Like curations, I'm still relatively small right now, but I think if Punkcast grows, curation could get a little bit challenging, right? And so I might have to lean back onto the community or the existing sort of punkcasters to help me triangulate whether or not people should be interviewed. Because I've had people interview me, and I just haven't. I heard people reach out to me and ask to be on Punkcast, but I haven't come across them or met them on Twitter or in the Telegram or in Discord or engage with them. I've had a look at their Twitter profile, and I haven't had much engagement. And I've just had to sort of say, hey, man, I'm sorry, but do you want to just come into the Discord and just like have a chat or something like that? I mean, I couldn't even find any of the history in there. And so like, I feel like a bit of a dick for saying no, but like, at what point do I sort of say yes or no? And, and if I also let other punks on that haven't held punks for long, it wouldn't give them enough opportunity to really engage with the punk community. So like, I was thinking about, you need to hold the punk for at least a minimum of 3 months or even 6 months before, I'd like to sort of interview you. Because like, what can you sort of say about the punk community for being in for 3 months? Do you know what I mean? So, and hopefully remove some of the short-termism grifters out of there, because like, hopefully, the punks that I'm sort of telling stories about are genuine punks that want to sort of be in the community for the long term and are true believers in who we are and the identity that we sort of portray to the world, right? So, yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Mm-hmm. Nothing is perfect. There are plus and minuses in everything, advantages and disadvantages. So, in your opinion, if you wanted to be critical about the punks community, what are some pain points according to you?
Well, I think there's too many channels. We've got Discord, we've got Telegrams, we've got Twitter groups, we've got WhatsApp groups, wherever WeChat groups. No, but I can't be too critical, right? I appreciate sort of the mix mash of, all the different channels that we're sort of in, all the different personalities that we have to cater for, and all the different interests that we have to cater for. And sometimes, the vibe just has to sort of be managed in some sort of instances, right? So I wouldn't say that I have any real material complaints about punks at all that comes to mind. I don't know. What about you? I mean, I don't know if you have any.
Oh, let's not go there, buddy. Let's not go there, buddy. I've been complaining in 5 other spaces all day long.
Honestly, just give me a sense of what sorts of things that, and then maybe after that I can sort of riff a little bit. But I think most of it's been pretty good. Like, we're not perfect, that's for sure. And we could talk about the Yuga ownership and the things that they're sort of doing and the narrative that's trying to be discussed. And but the thing is, like, they're trying, right? And I appreciate and understand that they're trying their best. And I don't think, like, it's not perfect, but I don't think we can ask for a better outcome. You know what I mean?
What do you mean, like Yuga owning CryptoPunks?
Yeah. I think Yuga owning CryptoPunks, and I think there's punks on the fence about what should be.
In my opinion, it was one of the worst moments of my life.
Yeah.
When I read the announcement that like punks got sold to Yuga, I can't describe how I felt.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, but also at the same time, though, whether it's you or somebody else, like, what's actually really going to change, right? Like, I don't know if, and I don't know if this is the right forum to sort of say it in, but like, whether it's you or another company or another VC company, they can be profit extractive or whatever it is, but like, I'm not sure if that really detracts away from the community of who we are and what we're using the NFT for. There might be some brand damage, but like, if you truly believe on what it is, like, I don't know. It's a contentious one, so I feel you.
Yeah, well, also without being too emotional about it, with my bias, I could say that this also creates a huge divide in the community.
Yeah.
So I think the punks that are pro Yuga, they don't really hang out with punks that are against Yuga. So whatever the right opinion is, having that divide is not healthy.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that, but I think that's sort of the punk way, right? Like, you sort of can't be counterculture and independent and then still be owned by somebody, right? So in some ways I can understand and appreciate that, but also at the same time, I think you've done a pretty good job of just leaving us alone, right?
Yeah. We will see how things go in the future. I hate DAOs, but I always said if I make a DAO, I will make a DAO only to buy the CryptoPunks IP and then fucking dissolve. Buy it back, give it to the punks, and dissolve, man. Yeah, that would be great. I don't know if it's realistic or not, but we will see.
That'd be a nice thought.
Now that the PunkCast is growing and you obviously enjoy doing it, I can tell you love it. What sort of daydreams are you having for its development? How would you like it to see grow?
Oh, good question. So I think I alluded to a little bit earlier. It's how do we sort of grow, I guess, the overall awareness of punks? And I'm thinking about that in two ways, and not to give too much away because I'm still working on a few things in the background. But one is, how do we get a new audience that's non-crypto native interested in punks? And I think, part of that would be that conversation we had about, starting on YouTube. And I think later this year, if everything goes well, I'll have some interesting things being launched on YouTube. And the other side too is NFT side. I'd like to explore that a little bit more. And obviously, we'd have to go back to some of the Punkcast guests, but I'd love to find a way to, create a special NFT to commemorate the moment in time of the podcast, and obviously be respectful of the punks that sort of wish to sort of do that. But that way, we could save the NFT or the podcast as a permanent record of the conversation on chain, and obviously, find ways to monetize that, and obviously, potentially sort of kick some of that back to Punk DAO, which will go into fund some future punk events. So that's the second part. And the third part would be another project where I'm sort of looking at into is to really create a project that really memes out punks, in similar fashion to 6529 memes and Sugito's Sees the Memes. I was exploring different ways that we could sort of experiment with that as well. And so just a fun way to really make sure that, the attention stays on punks for the long term. And all of these amazing sort of stories don't get lost in the wash, and, they're constantly sort of told at the forefront of everybody sort of entering the space. And so those are sort of some key elements of our wish list of where I'd love Punkcast to sort of go. We're sitting on some really amazing content, some amazing stories, but I just need to get off my ass and start tackling some of these in a bit more of a detailed fashion. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, I forgot. Are you affiliated with the Punk DAO?
Yeah, so I'm in Punk Ventures. So that's the for-profit one. So get on Monday night calls with the guys. They're a great group of guys. Learning a lot from them. Learning about how DAO works. Making some pretty good investments, but also reviewing a lot of deal flow as well in the space. And so just getting a bit of a pulse in terms of what's going on in the market, what sort of projects are launching. But Punk DAO is the not-for-profit one as well. And so, where we sort of can, we'll try and build up the community and host more events. And obviously Isaac and Isaac's probably been the real, hero behind that one. And obviously Henry Brody as well. He's been leading a lot of that development on the Punk Venture side.
As you mentioned about the NFTs and saving the transcripts on chain, that is super interesting, but it's a hit or miss, man. Like media NFTs are notoriously hard to sell and communicate the real value behind it. Do you think there will be more interest and people will understand it more? Because it's much better if the creator that you're listening, the content creator, doesn't try to sell you a fucking mattress, but sells you their own art, and if you like it, you can buy it immediately. So you don't also have to listen commercials. Do you think there's any value in that model?
In the model of the creator.
Similar to Redlioneye, for example, we are reporting news and we don't take investments, VCs or influencers to, let's say, invest in the news so they can promote their stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we try to monetize through the art.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a sustainable model. I think that's the ideal way. And, I'm cognizant of that too, right? Because, I'd like to have Punkcast be an uncensored sort of platform for punks to tell their story. but yeah. So and I know, like, so for example, Bankless have NFT some of their podcasts, and I think they've just been selective about which ones that they've put on for sale as an NFT, like the more critical, historical, in quotation marks, culturally, historically irrelevant, conversations, like, the conversation they had with SBF and all that type of stuff. But for me, these just, in my mind, that they'll just be collectibles, right? Of moments in time, collecting a little bit of artifacted history. But I think just the delivery in which we sort of do it, the format that we could do it, could be a little bit more engaging and fun. So that's sort of a few things that I'm sort of thinking through.
Yeah, I would love to see more attempts to explore this. I have shouted at the cloud like an old man on Twitter that I fucking hate being shown Raid Shadow Legends when I'm watching an amazing video about art. I would prefer the creator to show me their project and sell me their shit instead of like random internet bullshit, because they hold the power. If they don't advertise these idiots, they will, first of all, make more, and second of all, hold more power. Because now, if you are like, if you're needing the commercials and all this external revenue, then you are dependent on them. But in reality, they're dependent on you, because without you, they can't sell their project. Attention is much more difficult to make than money. So I truly believe in the future that this new model with NFTs definitely belongs in the content creator economy.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, then I've got to say, some of the NFTs that you're dropping on Redline is pretty dope, man. I really love some of the stuff that's coming out. So well done on that.
Thank you, man, and big shout out to the whole team. It's a team effort. We put our heart and soul in everything. Even this Monday, we were up until 5 a.m. Just to finish the magazine, because we wanted to make it amazing. Even though we know like nobody will fucking see it, we feel the responsibility of making it absolutely perfect. So big shout out to the whole team, especially Dudley and Amal, the main artists of our project. They are incredible people, and we are so lucky to have connected in this lifetime. I don't think Redline would have existed if we didn't have like this committed team. And even if it doesn't work in the long term, if people don't embrace it, I will forever feel great that we had this, little company of amazing people. We are like a family, we fuck around all the time. So I feel grateful for that forever.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the friends along the way, right?
Absolutely.
About conferences, have you attended any? You said you live in Hong Kong, right?
That's right.
Are you gonna move soon? Now that it's going back to China?
No, not at all. If anything, I'm probably a bit more bullish here in Hong Kong on crypto going forward. I think they've been.
All right.
I think regulatory wise,
All right.
I think it'd be quite good. But yeah, so I think Hong Kong's home for me. But I'd love to sort of get to more conferences though. I've only been to the NFT NYC one during the COVID, but hopefully
You went in 2022, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we went in 2023.
Probably a better time, but
yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to get.
Man, like if you are going to attend any conferences, and even if you do it last minute, if we are there and we have a booth, you are more than welcome to come share our own booth and set up shop there. We want to support like content creators and podcasts and press in general, journalism. So if we are there, feel free to come and like loiter with us.
Amazing, done deal. I'll grab your coffees.
Yeah, I really mean it, man. Like I'm not just saying it to be polite. Just hit me up and say, hey, Red, if you are there, it's last minute. I didn't have time to do preparations, and yeah, 100%, man.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
We are trying our best to now to be part of a lot of conferences because it's amazing.
Yeah.
The experience is great, man.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think what's your favorite one so far? Like, I've only been
Lisbon by far, Lisbon.
Wow. Okay. So out of all of them,
By far, it's not even a matter of comparison. It's like worlds apart.
so if I was,
The only problem with Lisbon was like it only was for 2 days. We wanted 2 more fucking days.
wow. So yeah, I heard Mullet raving on about it. Like Mullet was there, and he sort of said he was partying every single day.
Oh my god! Oh, he had a crazy time there, man. That was crazy. It was insane. I loved Wallet. I loved meeting him, man.
Yeah, Mullet's a good dude. Well, yeah. Okay. So if I was to go to one next year, Lisbon would be the pick, would it?
Well, I think so. Like, I made the tweet, like, if you can only attend one conference a year, there is no question that's Lisbon.
All right, I might have to ask for a league pass next year.
But also people said, like, NFT Tallinn also is super cozy.
Which one? NFT?
It's a very... Tallinn.
Where's that?
It's the capital of Estonia.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. So it's very, like the Baltic countries are very strong in technology and adoption of new technologies and blockchain. They have frameworks there. Everything works there. And it's not a big conference, but everybody says it's like absolutely amazing. It's super cozy. So we will try to do that. But like, I've never been. That's what people say.
Oh, nice.
For me, it's Lisbon because I love Portugal also.
Well, surprised that a lot of punks made it out there. So it seemed like a lot of punks were able to sort of make their way out to Lisbon this year. But
yeah, it's a very good location. It's close to the US, let's say, like very close to the East Coast. And for Europeans, it's like usually a 1 to 2, 3 hour flight maximum. So it's very doable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a good spot for a conference. Very good weather. So yeah, I wouldn't go to London, for example. I would go to Lisbon.
Yeah.
I would prefer to go to Lisbon.
Gotcha.
It was really great. Well, we approached the 1 hour golden mark, and I think it was an excellent chat with you, man. Did we miss anything, or is there anything else you would like to touch?
No, I think time flies when you're having fun, man. So thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah.
It was good.
It was great, man. And we also we do this PunksTalk, and we also like to, like, same as the podcast you see on YouTube, and you have like returning guests. We love to have returning guests, so we document like their opinions and life journey in different times, because like maybe now I say I love NFTs and next year I'm like fuck NFTs. So I would like to invite you again after a while if you want to come back to the show.
Absolutely, man. Anytime, let me know.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming, man. Oh wait, we have one question here from our friend Billy the Goat. And if you guys have any questions, just jump in.
Hey, right?
Hey, what's up, my dude? How are you doing?
Good, man. What's up? Hey.
Everything good.
Hey, Max.
Hey, Billy. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Have you had Redlioneye on PunkCast?
Yeah, man.
I have indeed, sir.
Oh, that's a red card, bro. You need to go now. You need to subscribe to podcast. Go on YouTube. If he doesn't have +1 subscriber in the next 10 minutes, I unfollow you. And my interview needs to have +1 view in the next hour. Okay. Yeah, he did invite me early on. I will send it to you.
Oh, okay.
But what God Save the Goat would like to say, I think, is that he would like to suggest OX Tycoon for an interview. Maybe. He says he doesn't do interviews, but maybe he will do one with you because you have such an amazing platform.
I asked him a while back, but he said he'd prefer to be a non. I'd love to have him on. I'm a big fan of X Tycoon. For sure.
Yeah, well, I think there are ways around that even with AI that he can even change his voice and it can be really nice. It doesn't have to be his real voice.
I'll speak for him. I'll represent him and I'll speak for him.
Yeah, go pressure him, man. That's what we need. Apply the pressure. So tell him he needs to do Punkcast and then he needs to do PunksTalk also. All right?
Yeah. All right, man.
All right, thank you. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Definitely, if you don't know about it, go check Punkcast. It's like incredible, the best fucking podcast out there, and it's very rarely you see such an amazing show coming to life, one interview at a time, with such respect to the medium, to the art, to the community. So thank you, Max, for what you're doing. It's absolutely incredible, and I'm a huge fan.
Thank you so much for having me on, Redlioneye. Those are really, really beautiful words, mate, and really appreciate your support. So thank you, and to all the listeners out there today, thanks for tuning in and spending the last hour with us. Much appreciate that too. All the best.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening. Special love and blessings to every single one of you that were here for this lovely talk. And big love if you're listening on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to Punkcast and Redlion, of course. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Take good care. Bye-bye.